Picture, if you will, a United States-Mexico border town. You may see children being separated from their parents, humans in cages, oppression. My research in a US border town examines conversations between librarians and community members, conversations that begin with questions like, what do I need to file for divorce? And how can I die with integrity? The askers may be taxpayers or humans without formal residency. Although American public libraries have made valuable contributions, many were built to civilize immigrants. Systems built on oppression struggle to change, and my research looks for opportunities to combat oppression with attentive, radical care. In libraries, attentiveness is found in greetings, restating, and commiserating. I collected 20 hours of conversations between librarians and community members in a border town, and I'll share details on the 9 conversations that answer my question, how do bilingual librarians show care, if at all? Librarians greeted community members in 7 conversations, displaying attentive care. But even though 90% of the community speaks Spanish in their home, not one of the greetings was in Spanish. Also, 2 of the greetings included gendered words, such as sir or ma'am. But in an era when gender cannot be assumed, these words may have been viewed as oppression. Librarians restated what community members desired 5 times, showing attentive care. But one restatement happened after a man had revealed the blindness in his left eye. He explained his documentation for disability services and his need for extra support. What did the librarian restate? Not the man's need, not his sincere disclosures. The librarian repeated that he had the documentation to receive special services. Radical care proves that people who come to the library receive differentiated services with or without any kind of documentation. Librarians commiserated with community members 6 times, displaying attentive care. But in one instance, a man in his 70s revealed his frustration while attempting to pay his taxes. The librarian commiserated that he was done already because of his old age. Radical care would note his assets and commiserate with his frustration or with the obstacles of being a principled human. Instead, the librarian focused on his old age as a deficit. Public libraries can be places where these humans, documented or not, can be oppressed or count on radical care. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right. Next, we have Giovanna. And Giovanna is going to talk to us about knowledge representation of translating first-time pregnancy experiences. Giovanna, you ready?
Yes. Pregnancy is one of the natural processes occurring in women. Giving birth to a child includes different emotions, experiences, and events. It involves a lot of care, including regular monitoring through ultrasounds, laboratory tests, and medical diagnoses during pregnancy and postpartum care. These days, pregnancy is being treated more like a disease than as a process of the life cycle. Before even trying to conceive, future parents have an idea of the laundry list of common pregnancy symptoms would look like. A coworker was eating ice cream to get through morning sickness. A cousin's feet ballooned up so that she could wear only flip-flops. So, once the baby is conceived, the expected parents think that they have heard it all. But no matter how much they have read, talked to their doctor, or asked their friends who have been there are some personal experiences which are never heard about. These lovely symptoms can be blamed on hormonal changes that create unexpected emotional and physical behaviors. Some of these are textbook, and others set a ton of surprising reactions that would have been nice to have some more information on if they're normal. This conceptual model you see here is built based on the existing knowledge from scientific literature on first-time pregnancy experiences, which is curated and developed by analyzing 75,000 PubMed articles. This conceptual model is the basis of an ontology model, which can briefly be described as a model seeks the classification and explanation of entities. which is built by connecting concepts based on the existing knowledge as mentioned, either evidence-based or scientific. The reason for choosing the subset of pregnancy, which is first-time pregnancy and parents, is that not only women who undergo physical and psychological changes, but the evidence from the literature shows that more or less equally, men and queer gender couples also undergo similar levels of distress in accepting the outcomes associated with pregnancy. This conceptual model explains the relationship between first-time pregnancy experiences in different population groups, not just considering women. We all know that only two genders are assigned biologically during the birth of a baby, male or female, and only females can get pregnant. But this model shows the relationship between how biological sex and social identities are connected to humans. Furthermore, how two people unite to form a couple, and how couples can play a role as parents, and how their first-time pregnancy experiences can be broadly classified into physical and psychological experiences. Therefore, considering the traditional and non-traditional parents, this model is the basis for developing a consumer-based healthcare application, which is part of an LM grant named Personal Health Libraries that provides multidimensional, time-dependent, and trustworthy information considering the expected parents' perspectives, preferences, and perhaps maybe a solution. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, audience, now you get the opportunity to vote on who your favorite presentation was from our 3-minute pitch presenters. Use your cameras and your QR codes. Let me know if I need to put a link in the chat. I'm gonna vote. Everybody got it? All right, and you get to choose who your favorite presentation was. Give you guys another minute or so. Shonda, were you speaking? I couldn't hear you. I still didn't hear you.
A lot of people are putting in the chat they need the link.
Okay. Give me just a second.
Someone just put one in there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry. I almost have to stop sharing to find the link. But thank you for sharing that link. I appreciate it. Does anyone else need the link or need me to go back to the slide for the QR code? Do that. You won't get the results until the end. Oh, wait, really, Dr. Hardy? Yes. Okay. So we'll do our results after our 3-minute pitch and probably after our judges deliberate. So probably at around 1:30 or 1:45. So if you have to pop back in to see who won. All right.
Dr. Hardy, can you hear me now?
Yep, sure can.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep, I know. I'm glad we got that straightened out. Good deal. All right. So awesome. Thanks so much for participating and voting. So we're going to move into our 3-minute thesis competition. We have 12 competitors in this category. They are all PhD students and they are so excited to share with you a little bit about their research. And I'm so excited to see what they have come up with. All right, so we're going to start with Niharika, and she's going to talk to us about selective estrogen receptor modulators, healer of spine. Unmute yourself. Check to see if your laptop is muted too. Sometimes I do that.
I had to reset the audio input with the caret above the mute to ensure that I'm selecting the microphone that is actually picking up my voice.
Thanks for that tip, Shonda. No? Do you want to dial into the competition? Okay. So she's going to come back and join us in just a minute. We're going to go ahead and move to our next presenter and come back to her. And that's Ronald Cunningham. Ronald, are you ready? Unappreciated, underrepresented, and unemployable. A critical race spatial analysis of Black male educator roles in K-12 schools versus rotor technology.
Dr. Hardy, can you hear me okay?
Yep, sure can. Got you.
Just really quickly, that title is incorrect.
So sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So I'll go ahead and get started. All right. In my time as a K-12 educator, I worked in some capacity for more than 20 school corporations in 6 different states. Those experiences produced 3 key observations. 1, although I wanted to focus on teaching, I was regularly called on to provide support for colleagues who were struggling with behavior management. 2, I noticed that opportunities for me to advance in academic roles were limited, while opportunities for Black male educators to step into coaching roles were always available and highly incentivized. 3, the majority of my colleagues were nice white ladies and identified as social justice warriors and allies of the disenfranchised. My experiences were reflective of a broader population. And so it must be noted that while white female neoliberal educators exercise privilege and misandrous values through microaggressions specifically directed at individuals who were both Black and male. Black male educators, it seems, are welcome in K-12 spaces, provided they accept the overwhelmingly non-academic supplemental roles available to them: coaches, behavior deans, security guards, athletic directors, and paraprofessionals, and they avoid narrowing the pool of academic opportunities that are available to others. Anecdotal evidence points to these nice white ladies as the architects who frequently determine the scope of these roles. Awareness of this phenomenon has grown substantially over the last 30 years. Chance Lewis highlighted the benefits of having Black male educators in school buildings. Christian DePauw drew attention to the harms authored by nice white ladies in urban education. And Travis Bristol has shown the increasing presence of Black male educators in schools. Unfortunately, none of these studies looks critically at the specific roles Black male educators fill, so much as researchers are content in their findings that these men have value and are somewhere in school buildings. My research challenges satisfaction with simply knowing that Black male educators are in buildings without consideration of the specific roles available to them. It outlines the hostile systemic practices authored by these nice white ladies and shows the impact of those practices on the professional aspirations of these educators. My study draws on 3 frameworks. Autoethnography provides a means of centering the experiences of Black male educators. Critical race spatial analysis provides both language and a lens to discuss spatial injustice and identifying where these men are situated in schools. And finally, critical race theory guides the consideration of how the interests of Black male educators and those nice white ladies converged at times and diverged at others. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ronald. So we're going to go back and see if Niharika is ready. I know she had popped in, but perhaps she popped back out. Okay. We'll come back to her when she returns. Sorry about that. Right. Next, we'll hear from Haley. Haley, are you ready? Haley's going to present to us on cortical striatal. Judges blame me for that bad pronunciation. Cortical striatal activity and autism spectrum disorders.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Have you ever looked at a child and wondered, what are you thinking? Children see the world differently. It's amazing how quickly they learn to talk and walk, eventually discovering the person that they want to be. Recently, a new character was introduced to Sesame Street. Julia here is a 4-year-old puppet who's never seen without her rabbit Fluffster. Her best friends are Elmo and Abby Cadabby. But there's something extra special about Julia. She's the first character on Sesame Street to have autism. Her character and personality were developed with input from real people with autism as part of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. People with autism have differences in language, social interaction, and an affinity for sameness. My research dives into this question of, what are you thinking for kids with autism spectrum disorders? As a future physician and researcher, my goal is not to change the personality and uniqueness of people with autism, but rather to partner with my patients to achieve the dreams and goals they have for themselves. In my studies, we examine how the decision-making part of the brain and how the motivation part of the brain work differently in autism. We implant metal wires that can detect this electrical brain activity. Since this is a risky procedure for humans, we instead use mice that have a genetic mutation that causes social differences. Surprisingly, mice are very social, but my NF1 mice that have a genetic mutation for autism have problems with remembering a familiar mouse friend compared to a new mouse that they haven't seen before. This problem makes it difficult to learn from previous social encounters and apply these to new situations. I measured activity in 2 brain areas during their social behavior, in the nucleus accumbens, which is involved in motivated action, and in the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in decision-making. We discovered many new insights from these studies, and one that's particularly exciting is how these 2 brain areas communicate with each other. Coherence is a measure of how in sync the 2 brain regions are. Our NF1 mice have low coherence, indicating that the motivation brain area and the decision-making brain area aren't communicating as strongly in social situations. My PhD work describes why this is and how individual neurons work together to produce these complex signals all across the brain. Although we still have much to discover about how our brains learn and adapt, these studies are a step towards understanding how we learn in social situations. And for patients that have challenges with communication, we're one step closer to answering, what are you thinking?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great job, Haley.
Thanks.
All right. I need to check one thing really quickly. So give me 2 seconds and we'll give our judges a few minutes to also tally. Okay. Yes, let's do a check and see if Niharika can be heard now. Yes.
Hello? Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh, great.
Awesome. Yes.
Thank you.
All
Sorry
right.
for
So
all
we
the
will
drama.
we'll come back to you.
Yeah, great.
Sorry, y'all. All right, so we're gonna come back to Niharika and make sure she has the opportunity to present.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for bearing with me. I don't know what happened, Zoom call, something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, we've all been there.
Thank you for supporting.
Absolutely. All right, so we're back. And Niharika is going to present on selective estrogen receptor modulators, healer of spine.
Since my childhood, I have seen my grandmother suffering from back pain. It was difficult for her to lift objects or even walk. I always wonder why this back pain occurs and how it can be cured. Later, I realized she is not alone in suffering from this condition. According to a report in famous journal, The Lancet, this condition affects 540 million people, which is more than 1 in 10 people worldwide. Men and women both experience back pain, but the frequency is higher in women. Old women undergoing menopause suffer from estrogen deficiency, which increases problem of osteoporosis or bone loss and back pain. Estrogen is a hormone which plays major role in development of female reproductive system and other body parts. The culprit for the spinal back pain can be either the bone loss in the vertebra, which is the bony structure bearing our body weight, or the degradation of the intervertebral disc, a soft tissue between two bones, acting as a shock absorber for the spine. Bone have two types of cells, osteoblast, which makes bone, and osteoclast, which eats up the bone. A healthy bone is the result of a balance between bone formation and bone resorption. Estrogen deficiency increases the number and activity of bone-eating cells, resulting in an imbalance and increased bone loss. Estrogen deficiency also causes intervertebral disc degeneration, but the underlying mechanism is still under investigation. I'm sure you all have seen the Marvel series, right? Just like one of its character, Deadpool, which regenerates itself after any damage. We have a class of treatment called selective estrogen receptor modulators prescribed to patients suffering from estrogen deficiency to help them regenerate bone and treat back pain. This drug interacts with estrogen receptors in bone, mimicking estrogen and regulating the activity of bone-eating cells, thereby preventing osteoporosis or bone loss. Another factor which causes back pain and is often overlooked is intervertebral disc degeneration. The current treatment for disc degeneration is invasive surgery of fusing vertebra, which rarely cures the back pain. This treatment causes trauma, frequent hospital visits, and huge medical expenses. Till date, there's no regenerative treatment for intervertebral disc degeneration. One thing which is common between bone and the intervertebral disc is presence of estrogen receptors. This opens up the treatment window for possibly using this bone drug to even cure the intervertebral disc disease and back pain. In my ongoing research, I'm using a mouse model to see if this regenerative bone medicine can improve the biological and mechanical properties of the intervertebral disc with respect to sex and aging. So far, it looks promising, as multipurpose regenerative treatment. This will help increasing our productivity in daily activities, leading to healthy and pain-free life, and will prove as the ultimate healer of the spine. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Great job. And worth waiting for, right? So We're glad we can hear you. All right. So we're going to move to Shonda Gladden, and Shonda's going to present to us on the soil of our grandmother's gardens, womanistic visual, I think it's visual, culture unearthed from antebellum American plantation themed cinema.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll begin. Growing up, I learned a lot about life as I watched my grandmother in her garden. Her garden was not like other gardens I've seen or recall now as an adult. See, I recall my grandmother's garden, actually my great-grandmother's garden, as a place that evokes feelings of belonging, safety, warmth, and love just thinking about it. This house and the soil upon which it is planted is the place where I continue to come alive. Likewise, this image of me being held by my great-great-grandmother seated in the yard of this house is both jarring and comforting. It evokes feelings of comfort for me in knowing that I am a descendant of Mary Johnson County, who, as far as we can trace her ancestry, was a sharecropper, and very likely the first generation removed from our matrilineal connection to a tobacco plantation in Southern Maryland. Yet this image also jars me to know that my own familial memory can construct the time and place where our people not only treaded the soil of a plantation, but very likely worked the same soil. My story is not unique, but yet it is important. Colonization and the brutal perpetuation of antebellum slaveocracy ruptured familial lines as grandmothers and grandchildren were violently disconnected from one another and the very soil from under their feet. What images and memories might be unearthed as plantation-themed cinematic portrayals transport Black women back to a time where their imagination is triggered? To answer these questions, my research is comprised of hosting a community film festival, part of the 2021 Spirit and Place Festival, where community members, scholars, and everyday citizens gathered to watch these two plantation-themed films, Antebellum and Harriet. During the festival, I moderated a panel as well as a community conversation where we discussed cinematic portrayals of Black embodiment as needy, entitled, only productive when produced, and otherwise subservient that seem to exploit historic tropes of Black bodies. These conversations suggest that these images and others like them contribute to the perpetuation of problematic anti-Black sentiments and cultural norms. Through ethnographic inquiry, participant observation, surveys, ritualistic soil collection, and oral histories, my research examines the plantation as a transhistorical materiality that emerged as a period in history, yet persists as a temporal and ahistorical influence on individual and institutional behaviors in the United States, particularly in the sectors of nonprofit management, religion, and culture. The output of this project will answer the question, how do cinematic portrayals of antebellum plantation life, particularly for Black women, inform Black and anti-Black sentiments in modern American institutions? As activist Bree Newsom noted, considering that Harriet Tubman and Ronald Reagan were once alive at the same time, it makes sense to examine the plantation system that existed for centuries if you're trying to understand the modern dynamics of race, capitalism, and policing. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Moving forward. Nice. All right. Heidi's going to come to us next and talk about leveraging the Indiana Addiction Data Commons to support community members in crisis.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
You turn yourself up a little bit.
I'm battling a cold. Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's good.
Okay. Police are not behavioral health experts, yet they serve as important community gatekeepers to behavioral health services. In the United States, 10% of all law enforcement encounters involve people with mental illness, and an estimated 3/4 of those who have mental illness have co-occurring substance use disorders. The high stress and low certainty situations that are characteristic of law enforcement encounters involving people with mental illness and or substance use disorders have the potential to compromise the safety of officers and the safety and liberty of the person in crisis. Diversion programs reduce reoffense and improve outcomes of substance use treatment by helping officers connect community members in crisis to the appropriate behavioral health services. Crisis Intervention Training, or CIT, is a pre-arrest jail diversion program which promotes the use of multidisciplinary partnerships to divert people in crisis away from the criminal justice system and to increase access to and uptake of behavioral health services. Despite the success of CIT programs to improve collaboration between law enforcement and local health services, officers continue to report difficulties in safely engaging with people in crisis. Access to medical and social records of those individuals served by corresponding police mental health teams could promote the safety of officers and persons in crisis. These records provide insight on the characteristics of this vulnerable population and the circumstances in which the use of the corresponding teams is appropriate. They can also be used to predict the need for social service referrals during a crisis response. The Indianapolis Mobile Crisis Assistance Team is a CIT-based diversion pilot program that responds to behavioral health crises in Indianapolis. Access to and sharing of corresponding agency information regarding the person in crisis is a key component of the program's success. However, this exchange of information currently relies on piecemeal data collection and error-prone human cognition to synthesize and use information. The Indiana Addictions Data Commons could be leveraged to predict the need for crisis response teams and to recommend behavioral health services via an integrated decision support application. My study aims to build and test a decision model capable of predicting the need for crisis assistance versus police intervention, build and test a decision model to recommend the type of behavioral health service referral, design and implement the decision support application, and evaluate its effect. Incorporation of the application in the Mobile Crisis Assistance Team program will prevent unnecessary police intervention, connect community members in crisis to interdisciplinary care, and support the decision capability of their care teams. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Awesome. All right. Aren't our presenters doing a great job? You guys can clap them up at any point. Here for the reactions. All right, now we will hear from Desmond Kemp, and he will talk to us about an analysis on the practice of managing public sector employees engaging on social media. Ready, Desmond?
Yes. Think about your most recent moments on social media. Does your digital lifestyle mirror your professional image? In January, you probably received a text from a friend that said, "Did you see that Trump was blocked on Twitter? I never thought we would be at a point to where the president of the United States and an elected official would be blocked on social media." The last 10 years have been quite intriguing as our lives merge to social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Zoom. Social media's integration into the workplace position employees in public and private sectors at a risk to be questioned and monitored by their employer. What about elected officials? That was my question. Using a mixed methods approach, I surveyed 6 public sector human resource professionals within the Indianapolis area to find out just exactly how our local public sector workers that engage in social media are managed. Their responses informed that all workers are not surveilled because it infringes upon their First Amendment rights. But the organization do provide policies that inform them to separate their own political views from the organization. However, our elected officials are not held under the same terms as municipal and state workers. My research is current and trending. It recommends applying corporate social responsibility strategies to create a thorough social media policy for elected officials. In the post-COVID era, there is a need for citizens to be able to trust our elected officials since social media is a channel of communication. If they are blocked on Twitter and penalized for incivilities, we may have to create a new system for electing our future leaders. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much. Lots to think about. Wow. All right, so we're going to hear from Samira, and Samira is going to talk to us about adversarial attacks and defense mechanisms against deep point processes. Samira?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
All right.
May I start?
Go for it.
Sure. Machine learning is in the center of latest progress in technology. It's an essential tool for accurate predictions nowadays, from the Alexa devices at our home and cell phones that we are using all the time to more sophisticated applications such as military devices and airplanes. The point is, we are personally affected by the decisions made by machine learning more and more every day. Now that these exciting and powerful tools are in use everywhere, the questions are they sure about the decisions that they are making? Can we trust them? How do they perform in the presence of adversarial attacks? The general answer to all these questions is relatively negative, unfortunately, of course. But there are solutions to be discovered for these security and trustworthy concerns that are highly dependent on the application of the models. My research is focused on machine learning and deep learning models utilized in a variety of dynamic phenomena, including crime, gang retaliation, stock market, fake news spread on social media, earthquake aftershock, and the spread of human viruses such as COVID-19 in a society or computer viruses on the internet. And what they all have in common is that they can be explained as an evolving viral process on a network. And what am I examining here is the robustness against non-stationary changes and adversarial attacks, which could be a bot on Twitter or even a non-stationary attack or trend. So for example, if you have a machine learning model for crime prediction and all of a sudden the pandemic hits, like the COVID-19, and or there are protests due to police violence, like what we had for George Floyd. So do those breaks the crime predictor performance or not? Unfortunately, yes, they are. Now, how am I doing it? First, I'm putting myself in attackers' shoes and crafting adversarial attacks against these machine learning and deep learning models. Then I'm proposing certified defense mechanisms to make models more robust against not only the adversarial attacks, but also the non-stationary changes like COVID-19 pandemic. So by the end of my results and by the end of my research and the results of my research, we will all be happier and feel sure about machine learning models, and the deep learning point processes models will become more strong and more trustful. So keep calm and trust machine learning.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I like her sad Mac computer. All right. So next we're going to move to Saylee, and Saylee is going to present to us on glaucoma, silent killer of sight.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. I'm ready when you're ready.
We are ready.
Okay. Imagine you go back home for holidays and you have fun there and you sleep, and suddenly when you wake up, this is your vision. Dark on the outside, suddenly getting darker in the middle. Sounds terrifying, right? That's exactly what glaucoma patients go through every single day of their life. And the worst part, initially there are no symptoms, but later when there is substantial loss of cells, only then there is vision loss. Hence, glaucoma is called as the silent killer of sight. Now, what are these cells that I'm talking about? These cells are called retinal ganglion cells, short form RGCs, that give us the beautiful virtue of sight. My thesis work involved studying these RGCs and how they die off in glaucoma. There are different mechanisms, such as genetic mutations and a barrier that protects these cells from toxins. This barrier is more like a bouncer in a club, making sure who enters and who doesn't. It has to have like the highest resistance to unwanted people and low permeability or entry to these people. That's what I look in my healthy barrier, where I have highest resistance and low permeability. The coolest part of my project is that I derive all these different cell types and put them together using stem cells that have the potential to form any cell type of the body. So I can easily derive adult patient cells, bring them back to stem cells, and differentiate them to any cell type, ruling out species differences. Now I have two conditions, healthy and glaucoma, the difference between the two only being of the mutation. And we have seen that the glaucoma shows compromised barrier just because of the mutation. We have also identified a factor that has been responsible for this, called as TGF-beta 2. Thus, our model, because of its versatility, We could mimic certain parts of glaucoma and can also be used for other disease modeling and other drug screening. For future directions, we'll be looking at how the RGCs affect the barrier. So do not underestimate the beautiful virtue of sight that you have, because not everyone is lucky to have it throughout their life. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for the visual. All right. Judges, how you doing? You guys need any time? All right. Okay. All right. We're going to move on. All right. So we're going to move to Shweta, and Shweta is going to present to us on synapses of inner ear in a dish to patch up the broken junction between hair cells and neurons.
I'm ready.
All right.
All right. So hello, everybody. Let me tell you a story today. So that's Ty. Oh no, don't worry. He's a human. He's just dressed as an alien. And we met last night in the Halloween party and he was listening to loud music. He usually does that. And because of which his hearing capacity has reduced. His auditory brainstem responses are no longer normal. And that might be because of degeneration or dying off of his inner ear hair cells. And that's where my research fits in, and I talk about synapses. Okay, now what are synapses? So synapses are the junctional connections between an inner ear hair cell and a neuron, which helps transmission of the external stimuli like sound for perception into our auditory cortex. And I hypothesize that the breakdown or degeneration of these synapses occurs much before the entire hair cell dies off due to sound, high sound called as noise. So for that, first I was supposed to model the development or the development of synapses, also known as synaptogenesis in the scientific language, in an inner ear organoid model system. So for that, I utilized the human embryonic stem cells and guided their differentiation into an adult inner ear hair cell in my organoid model system in a dish. And to my surprise, I found a lot of synchronicities in the way these synapses developed in vitro in the organoid model system and the human fetus. And we know that the human fetus study is ethically questionable. So that's where this organoid in a dish model system study plan just fills in. And in future, I plan on to model the degeneration of the breakdown of these synapses in vitro in this inner ear organoid model system in a dish. And so that might in future, someday might lead me to get hold of some notions about the regenerative capacity and thus help patch up of these broken synaptic junctions. Until then, the moral of today's Thai story was to please take care of your ears, because until now we know not a lot about the regenerative capacity and we get busy with our work. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I'm going to give our judges a minute. I have one judge that is having a Zoom difficulty. So I want them to log off and then log back in and see if that helps out a little bit. I'm hopeful. All right. But in the meantime, I will put a shameless plug in for our PFFP program and let you guys know that applying for PFFP is absolutely free. And you can do that by applying through our website. And I will drop that website in the chat. So also, at the end of this set of presentations, we will have another 3-minute pitch. 3-minute thesis People's Choice Award. So you'll have another opportunity to weigh in on who gave the best or your favorite presentation. Also, I'll let you guys know that that our conference evaluation, we'd love to get some great feedback from you all. So we'll do that probably a little bit before we end the day. So be ready to give us your thoughts, your opinions, and let us know what you guys need. We're always open to having other sessions. So if there are other sessions that you have an interest in, absolutely let us know. I think my judge is back. He had to step out for a minute and then come back.
Can you hear me, Dr. Hardy?
Because we want to make sure that they are able to see and hear our presentations. They've been so great today. All right. And you're getting some congratulations and shout outs in the chat too. So do check that out, presenters. All right, I think our judges are ready. Yes, no, maybe you guys all right? Okay. All right, so we're going to go now to Elise Smith. And Elise is going to talk to us about seeing beyond the body, dismantling negative narratives on fat bodies via the use of critical race theory and visual activism.
Have you ever looked at your body and wondered if it will command enough attention that it may lead to discrimination, manipulation, and misrepresentation? The life of Satarji Bartman, dubbed as the Hottentot Venus, experienced this as her life was displayed on European stages in the early 1800s due to her large size. Colonizers saw her body as entertainment, which ultimately led to her demise. As a fourth-year doctoral student, I deepened my understanding of her experiences to challenge the narratives of fat Black female bodies. In a society that defaults to European beauty standards, the aforementioned identities are often associated with failures. How many times have you turned on television or scrolled social media to see a bigger body being mocked? The use of fat suits, the gross misrepresentation of abilities as fat bodies are deemed incompetent, unattractive, and considered a failure to the definition of a healthy body. In my research, I aim to create a sense of belonging that defines as a feeling of connectedness. Simply put, this is an individual's feeling of being important or mattering to others. In doing so, I created the brand's Fatness Fiction and the podcast titled Plus Size Magic Radio as restorative healing spaces to amplify the voices of bodies that have been told they are incorrect. Growing up, I avoided being expressive due to the fear of being called fat. I chose school as my drug of choice to prevent individuals from questioning if I am valuable based on stigmas society places on my intersecting identities. I can't walk into a room and separate my gender, my Blackness, or my fatness. I fold my public scholarship into the academy to dismantle the negative narratives around race, gender, sexuality, and the emerging social justice topic of body image and size. In my work, it is important that I use the frameworks Black feminist thought and critical race theory. I employ the storytelling tenet from critical race theory as it empowers marginalized voices by uplifting and centering their narratives. As a fat body, many times I am met with concerns about my health without anyone knowing that my size does not impact it. Their concerns are firmly rooted in vanity. However, not every fat body is unhealthy, nor it is an ailment that only occupies fat bodies. I advocate for those who have been silenced before their story is heard. My work centers the experience of those told their bodies are not enough. My research is for those seeking community when the world has defined you without taking in consideration of who you are holistically. I am not anti-anybody, but I am pro my body. Again, I pose to you, what if the intersections of your gender, race, and size played a role in your daily experiences and was deeply connected to the historical mistreatment of who you are? I remind you that your body is enough. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for those reminders, Elise. All right. Next, we'll have Milka, and Milka's going to talk to us about AI dance, designing an AI-based feedback for ballet assessment and learning.
Today, we stand at the dawn of the human machine era, a time when our senses are not just supplemented by the devices we embrace, but thoroughly augmented. The rapid acceleration of technology is presenting new ways to mediate the world we see, hear, feel around us, and the skills we possess in real time, all the time. Judith Gray, a pioneer of dance technology, once said, "Dance, the oldest art, is today but a young science." For over 200 years, the ballet training environment has not evolved. While the mirror is the primary source of immediate visual feedback, it does not offer the ability to tell students what and how to correct their mistakes. This is where a teacher comes in, right? However, one dance instructor often faces dozens or more students at a time. Therefore, the feedback and assessment the instructor can provide is limited, untimely, and relies on subjective visual assessments. Current technology designs are often too expensive, too invasive, and too impractical to be implemented for daily training use. How can we effectively augment ballet learning in the 21st century? An opportunity opens to utilize human pose estimation, a video-based computer vision technique that predicts and tracks the position and orientation of a person's body parts to design machine learning-based feedback for the assessment and learning for dancers and teachers. To design this ML-based tool, I utilized a 4-step design process where I first collected and cleaned ballet class video data. Next, I decomposed teacher feedback and ballet movements into building blocks for machine learning and developed a model to detect errors with a 99% accuracy. Third, I designed a prototype called AI Dance to visualize and present this data in a meaningful way through the use of video feedback and glanceable metrics. Finally, I evaluated this proof of concept with 4 teachers that yielded 15 use cases and design recommendations that show promise for not only the democratization or accessibility of ballet assessment and learning, but have broader implications for movement assessments and clinical practices such as neurology, orthopedics, and sports medicine, as well as robotics. The vision in using a data analytics approach is to provide a tool that gives information beyond what can be seen to make the unseen seeable. More specifically, in leveraging movement data invisible to the human eye by providing AI-based metrics to optimize movement training and performance. The possibility for effective AI video analysis tools in ballet and movement in general could be the future. Finally, ballet would move from dance, the oldest art, is today but a young science, to the needs of 21st century ballet learning. Thank you.
All right, wow, that's awesome. Our judges are in for a fight today, so we're excited to see how this goes. Our presenters are bringing all the A games. Yes, all the A games. Zora, have you joined us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. Zora had a meeting earlier, so we had to move her a little bit. But Zora is joining us from the School of Social Work to talk about social entrepreneurship, a way to reduce poverty in Pakistan. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go for it.
Just imagine that there is a man. He is living in Pakistan. He is living in a far, far away, isolated area of Pakistan. He cannot find a job and his family is starving. There are 3 solutions for his problem. Number 1, we can open a supermarket near his home so he can find cheap products from there. But he don't have any money. The second option can be that somebody gives some donation to him and some food to him, but it will be finished in some months. So there is third option, that is we can teach him how to grow vegetables in his land or how to take care of the cattle and how to sell the products of himself in the market. So the third solution is the best one. Then he can provide enough food and money for his whole family. Simply, it is the idea which is given by social entrepreneurship. It is teaching men how to fish instead of feeding him only for one day. Solving social problems in innovative and sustainable way. Social entrepreneurs are the people who have innovative ideas to solve the world's most pressing social problems. They do that by creating new products, systems, solutions to help change people's life. Social enterprise is both as job and as creation of new ways to help the people, to seed, to grow, for promotion of new strategies and policy. So what should you can do to be a social entrepreneur? Find a problem that can be existing in your society. Second, you can dig deeper to find the solutions. And the third step can be implement their solutions. So my thesis is about social entrepreneurship. Impact is the empowerment, and my hope is to reduce poverty from Pakistan. I want to see my people more empowered, more dignified, and more helpful to the whole society. Thank you.